matter. But take a look at this story. Deputy President William Ruto's allies have in recent days been locked in a bitter war of words, with cabinet secretaries inclined to his bitter rival ODM leader Raila Odinga. This as a number of the cabinet secretaries take up an active role in frontline campaigns for Odinga, with several other members of the cabinet also lining up for elective seats in next year's polls. But just how did we get here? And could the country be witnessing the last days of a presidency with an apolitical cabinet? Murimi Mwangi explains on this week's House of Cards.
Asante sana. Anakabidhiwa.
Fresh from lifting the presidential trophy in one of the country's arguably most grueling presidential contests and the first under the 2010 constitution, President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto made a promise as they went about crafting their cabinet.
In the cabinet, there will be only two politicians, the president and myself.
But turned out that was a promise too hard to keep. The first familiar political faces in the Jubilee 2013 cabinet were former legislators Najib Balala and Charity Ngilu, who would later be joined by former Laikipia East legislator Mwangi Kionjori in November 2015 to replace former devolution CS Anne Waiguru. More politicians would join Kenyatta's cabinet in 2016, when the president convinced then Kericho Senator Charles Keter and former Malindi North legislator Dan Kazungu to quit their parliamentary seats to join cabinet. And with just 10 months to the general election, Kenyatta's cabinet has become the epicenter of tough succession politics, with key CSs leading the front line in former Prime Minister Raila Odinga's presidential campaigns. Among these is Interior CS Fred Matiang'i, Treasury's Ukur Yatani, Defense CS Eugene Wamalwa, ICT's Joe Musheru, CS Mutai Kagwe of Health, and Water and Irrigation CS Sisli Karaoke, recently igniting the wrath of Kiruto allies, with UDA Secretary General Veronica Maina recently protesting Matiang'i and Musheru's participation of an election preparedness meeting, also attended by IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati, Attorney General Kihara Kariuki, and Chief Justice Martha Koome.
The CSs are supposed to be impartial because they need to serve Kenyans, whether they are in ODM or UDA or in Jubilee or any other political formation. But you have a CS who is preparing for an election, already decided openly that he will support a specific presidential candidate, and then the compromising of that general election has begun.
The UDA brigade, led by their captain, they are reaping from where they have actually sown, because they are the ones who began this. Deputy President has not reported to work. Zero. He has not reported to work. He's been 100% on a campaign trail. All the projects he purported that he was opening, all of them, none of them have started. He's always just continuing to promise. The last 5 years.
In response to Maina's letter, IEBC affirmed the need for public and state officers to uphold political neutrality in accordance with Chapter 6 of the Constitution on Leadership and Integrity. Previously, CSs have defended their campaigns as public forums to espouse government policies to the people. But could the raging state of affairs entrench debate on need for future amendment of the Constitution to allow return of political ministers, as was the suggestion in the Building Bridges initiative? And where does this leave what appeared to be a deliberate push by crafters of the 2010 Constitution to lock out active politicians from cabinet?
There's nothing else that can be done which is stronger than that. It's just implementing that statement, implementing that aspect of the law. Our problem is executing the law. We make beautiful laws, we don't execute them.
What bothers me is that these cabinet secretaries do not find time to answer questions in relation to their ministries when they are called by various committees of parliament, but find time to get into the presidential debate. Now, the folly of what is going on now is that it demonstrates that the presidential system cannot work.
At the moment, Jubilee is suffering from a situation whereby we have done a lot as a government. The government has done a lot, but there are no people who are politicians who will be able to go to the field, go and articulate the issues as a politician.
Because one, even us as members of parliament, every other time when we pass budget here and you try and follow whether projects that have been allocated in the budget are being implemented on the ground, some of our CSs have no touch.
According to IEBC timelines, state and public officers eyeing political seats in the 2022 polls have until February next year to quit office. And with the increasing interest of the Kenyatta administration in the upcoming presidential contest, no doubt Cabinet will remain on the national spotlight as the 2022 campaigns rage on. Murumi Mwangi, KTN News.
Okay, so that's a big question. Is the presidential system working as it is? Because on one side, public officers should in one way or the other uphold political neutrality. But on the flip side, these are political appointees and they express the manifesto of the appointing authority, in this case, President Uhuru Kenyatta. So, gentlemen, I'd like us to be really brief on this particular issue. Should we see a return of political ministers, Kioko?
I think ministers or the CSs, the work they do is very political. Serving the people is a political exercise. Whatever decision you make will either be liked, will not be liked. It's a political exercise. I think initially, the thought process of when we were changing the constitution or creating the 2010 constitution was that public ministers would pull public resources to their areas of their supporters. So the need was to have neutral people going out there to ensure that public resource management is not influenced by the politics of the day. So that whether you agree with my politics or not, your right to acquire public service, your right to be served is guaranteed. And it is guaranteed from a constitutional perspective and even from the holders of this position. But then there's the real life issues. Does it mean when my boss, who's now the president, is there, is seeking a re-election or is pushing a public agenda on the table, what does supporting him mean? Is it a political manifestation or is it continuation of public service by articulation of the goals and desires of the sitting president? That is where these people have been quoted. Okay. I think it is their right to support whoever the president supports. It is their right to continue propagating a political agenda of the president, because the president is political. And yes, he has service delivery agenda to people, and he also has his political agenda as a politician that needs to be propagated, and it will be propagated by the CSs who are his immediate appointees and the principal secretaries who are his immediate appointees. However, it is the caliber of these CSs that is bringing the issue. You know, sometimes you might not need to go into the public dais or onto the stage to support a particular individual. If you've sufficiently empowered as many people as possible, those people can speak on your behalf as you take a backseat. But because majority of these CSs have not empowered or have not created sufficient traction on the ground so that they can easily tell Baba, I will not be there, or they can easily tell somebody, I will not attend this rally, but the following people will support you and will give you everything that you require. It helps seal that perceptual challenge.
Okay, well noted. Okango, over to you. And I think there's no issue, according to what the Supreme Court said back in 2017. But when we take a look at the last 4 years or so, some cabinet secretaries summoned to Parliament, some are no-show, but they might have time to politic in terms of 2022 politics. But what say you about this? Which side of the fence do you sit on?
Jesse, first of all, there is inalienable right in the provisions of Article 38, political rights. You cannot take it away from anyone whatsoever. Everyone enjoys it, including the cabinet secretaries. In fact, the only difference is that for us, we show our political inclination openly, while them, they don't show it openly. However, they do show that. Number two, if you look at the provisions of Article 152, the cabinet, the cabinet secretaries are collectively responsible to the president and individually responsible to themselves. And that means they take orders and responsibilities from the appointing authority. Who is the president? Who is the president? The president is a product of political process. So if you look at the Constitution of Kenya 2010, it says that the cabinet secretaries shall not be members of parliament. One of the members of parliament, my good friend Mutula Kilonzo Jr., has just put it explicitly. He says it has been very difficult to get these cabinet secretaries who are not members of parliament to answer questions, because the law requires that the parliamentary committee can summon them on any issue within their dockets, and they should explain. That is the law speaking. And therefore, if they are technocrats who are outside parliament and are not able to provide answers that will help legislate, will help give policy direction, will help secure lives of Kenyans, then it means that system must be changed. Okay. And that's why the proponents of constitutional amendment wanted to bring in change so that we can have cabinet ministers or cabinet secretaries or ministers for that matter in parliament. Accessibility is possible, and then efficiency is enhanced. All right. I hold and I submit that it is important that we relook at that, so that we don't go calling members of, cabinet secretaries, and they tell us they are in Lokichogio attending this function, or they are in Mandera attending this function. Okay. They should be in parliament, or their representatives in parliament, so that they answer to the questions that as raised by the parliamentary committee. Lastly, Jesse, it is important also to note that being a cabinet secretary is a very lucrative job. However, it is service to the people, and it does not stop them from also condemning some of the issues that are happening in this country. Some of the cabinet secretaries have been very bold. They have said, you know what? There are certain thieves in this country. They have been forced into paying money and they don't want to pay. They have been forced into signing documents they don't want to sign. So there's nothing wrong with the cabinet secretary being political, but there's something wrong if they are biased. And if you look at the stakeholder engagement that happened, as I finished, Jesse, the stakeholder engagement that happened, that brought, Chebukati, the ICT minister, the interior minister, it was not a political meeting. It was a stakeholder engagement. Students of system thinking in practice will tell you that stakeholder engagement is the only way for strategy. That was a strategic meeting to ensure that as we go into an election, where do we need to put our resources together? Where do we need to put our heads together? So when I hear people like Gerard Gay talk about politics in that meeting, I think I freeze, because it was not. It was an issue of stakeholder engagement so that we can have a seamless, effective and efficient way of running some of the electoral process.
All right, Okango.
The IDC chair was there.
Okay, I think your point is definitely across. Agwanda, I'll give you the final take on this. Impartiality is very important, especially with the role these cabinet secretaries play. The Interior Ministry, the ICT Ministry, do they have an influence come 2022? And do you think UDA are in the right mind to actually contest the politics that is being played by these cabinet secretaries?
Well, now, when I hear UDA, I hear Deputy President William Ruto. And in this regard, I think he is very inconsistent, because Honorable Raila Odinga and the ODM took the government to court in 2017 after the March election. And they mentioned a few ministers that were politically engaged in supporting Jubilee Party. I never heard Deputy President speak against it. What has changed that now he's the one writing to the same government that he's serving, complaining about the same ministers that are serving the president and serving him. These ministers were appointed by the president and the deputy president. That is known. We are also aware that the ministers that were appointed by the deputy president have been supportive of the deputy president political machine, have been supporting him financially, have been running with them, and have also been strategizing with them. Now, the question that perhaps I want to ask the nation and UDA for that reason, is it when the ministers go in public to support the endeavors, philosophies, and the strategies of the president, that is when they have the problem? Or when the ministers are doing it secretly and silently? If anything, regardless of what happens, the ministers are there to support the ideologies, philosophies, and the strategies of the president for the running of the nation. And for that reason, even if they go public for that reason, I don't see any problem, because they are also supporting the deputy president, because it's still serving the same.
Well noted. Well noted, Agwanda. Thanks for keeping it brief, and I think your point is definitely across. We appreciate your input, gentlemen, each and every one of you. governance expert Michael Lagwanda, Joseph Kioko, political analyst, and joining us virtually, Fred Okango, the Secretary General of Third Way Alliance. Gentlemen, thanks for adding impetus into today's discussion, even as we get to kickstart the week in style. I think we are starting it off at an informed point of view, at least for our audience back at home. Thanks for your time. Allow us to take a short break right now, right here on Morning Express. It being a Monday, you know, it's all about sports chat as of 8 a.m. So let me give Toskin some space to bring you up to speed with the latest, and perhaps he'll definitely touch on the New York Marathon, how Kenya actually bagged a double in the